All right, gentlemen, thank you for being on with us here today. BizCast now going virtual. We're pretty excited about having both of you on to talk about real estate and some of the legal implications. So we have Noah Turner here on the call from CBIZ Gibraltar, and Don Leventhal, who is an attorney based here in Chicago, highly esteemed. So gentlemen, starting with Noah, if you could give us a little bit about your background and what you've got going on, then we'll jump into some questions and after Don gets to do the same. So take it from here.
I appreciate it, Julie. Thank you for having me today. Again, I mentioned Noah, CBIZ Gibraltar Real Estate. We are an exclusive tenant representation firm, which means we only represent tenants. We don't lease or manage any properties. We don't represent any landlords or anything like that. So 100% of our loyalty and our resources are dedicated to tenants and representing them and their interests in real estate in Chicago and throughout the country as well. I've been part of CBIZ Gibraltar for 22 years now. So our core team has been together that long. So we have a great handle on the marketplace as far as what tenants need, trends in the industry, and really how real estate affects not only Chicago marketplaces, but marketplaces throughout the country as well.
All right, excellent. All right, and Don, tell us a little bit about.
Sure. All right, I'm, as you know, I'm an attorney in Chicago. I've been here. I started in practice in 1986. I was with a large firm for a little over 12 years, and then I went out on my own. I represent a variety of clients, landlords and tenants, as well as purchasers and sellers of real estate, as well as a variety of other small businesses. So.
All right, excellent. I feel like this is a fantastic pairing. It's getting better, but it's been getting better here by the second. So, Noah, why don't you tell us, a little bit just about, some of the things that have been coming your way. I know your clients have a lot of concerns. You're trying to help them. Don is going to give us a little bit of insight, but do you think working from home is the new normal right now?
Well, as of right now, today, it is the new normal temporarily. Working from home, it's achievable nowadays because of obviously the great advances we've had in technology over the years. So a lot of businesses, they can be remote. They can work from home. They can get on video chats like we're doing today. They can have meetings and things remotely. And so having that access, it's easier obviously to do today than it was many years ago. But now the long game, is it really the new normal? Our team and a lot of people we've been talking to, we still feel, you still need that face-to-face interaction. You still kind of need, to be present together. Every business, regardless of your professional services, technology, anything you can think of, collaboration is key for a lot of businesses. And, this is great doing quick video chats like we're doing today. But, we feel that being present face-to-face, not only in a meeting with your own colleagues, but also new business and things like that, just to be face-to-face with somebody in a room, in a conference room, in their office, there is something to be said about that. You can read, people's emotions. You can really get to, the bottom line of what you want to talk about pretty easily when you're face-to-face in someone's office or in a conference room or what have you, versus kind of really working remotely. And so, is it the new norm, at least for today? Yes, because no one really has a choice right now. But the long play is really, I think everyone, at least we're talking to, is really hoping we can get past this, sooner rather than later, so we can go back to what everyone's really good at and being present for everybody.
Yeah, sure. It's been a little bit of a hard adjustment for me, but at the same time, I think when we do get out of this, and we will, because the only way out is through, that I'll be much more structured.
Yeah.
And which leads me really to my next question, which is, do you think we can be as productive can I be as productive when I'm in a physical office space? And you touched on that a little bit already, but
yeah. Again, can you be productive? The answer is yes, you can be productive. But again, our opinion is, we don't think you can be as productive. It's funny, a lot of, again, regardless of what business you're in, a lot of what's achieved is, hey, walking down the hall to someone's office and saying, hey, Julie, hey, Don, love to chat with you for a few minutes about what we're talking about here, an issue I have, an issue a client has, and you hash it out, you come up with some ideas, and you're able to achieve that just popping into someone's office, being present in an actual space itself. You really can't do that right now being remote because they'd have to text you or call you or say, hey guys, can you get on a quick chat? And there's distractions in the background, whether it's, other things you're working on, whether it's kids, whether it's other thing. So you have a lot more distractions right now working remotely versus being, physically present in an office. So I don't think you can be as productive as you can be when you're physically in an office itself.
Yeah, sure. I would have to agree with that right now. I've got, there's too many little, I go from the kitchen to, do I need a snack right now do the dogs need to be taken out? Yeah. Exactly. So are projects still moving along? I mean, what are you seeing right now?
So the good news is projects are still moving along. Okay. A lot of what we can do is technology based. We can do a lot of things online, web-based programs. A lot of what we do is not only conversations and phone calls and things like that, but also, proposals and analysis and things like that, exchanging with not only the clients, but, other parties we're negotiating with. So you can still achieve those parts of the process, right? In being in commercial real estate, one of the early stages of a project is actually physically walking office spaces and office buildings and touring spaces. So that's been put in the back burner, at least for now. But projects that are kind of work in progress that we've been working on for a while now, they're still moving along. And as long as businesses feel comfortable, hey, moving forward to the next step, we've been able to achieve that being remote right now.
Yeah, good. Well, because again, we're going to come through this and we want to be set up for success for it. How is this right now affecting office needs in the future? And what's the biggest thing that you're getting from your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because as of right now, it still is that, I think everyone's going to say, it's just that unknown. When am I going to get out of this? Is it going to be 30 days, 60 days, even longer? So with that, hey, I'm taking a step back to look at my office space needs. Am I looking at growth third, fourth quarter, even in next year? Are my needs pretty status quo right now? So, those kind of questions are being asked right now. And a lot of the stuff right now is just that unknown, is that a lot of groups are just kind of putting those kind of questions as far as my future space needs kind of on hold right now. But, to some extent, hey, if you have a lease coming up, whether it's this year, next year, you do need to start thinking about real estate. And so, the conversation continues to be ongoing. And as we get past this, unknown that everyone's dealing with, our hope is that we can, when the smoke clears, we'll be able to have a better definition of what that looks like.
Right. So I know that what's trending right now, and this is more for Don, but there's a lot of, the legalities of what's going on and how business is being affected right now is obviously one of the biggest questions on people's mind is, okay, is there rent abatement? Can my landlord forgive rent? Don, you had mentioned to me earlier in another conversation that a couple of the big questions for you is, what does force majeure look like, and as well as business interruption insurance. So Don, can you talk a little bit about just what you've been seeing and maybe how to get ahead of it?
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. First of all, with the calls I'm getting are on those types of topics. A lot of this business interruption insurance is sort of a fond hope, I think. There are these coverages out there. Everybody remembers reading it in their general liability policy. And then you go look at it, and it's a lot of times it's tied to a loss of a particular asset. You get fire insurance, and if there's a fire, then you get the business interruption insurance. It's not usually just a blanket thing. There are policies where there is coverage like that, but it's usually excluded. There's a list under the Quarantine Act of 1908, and if the disease that is causing the problem is on this list, then there isn't coverage. The insurance people work on these things together, and so they've figured out a way to give some coverage, usually with the notion that it'd be like a local epidemic or something, but they were very careful after the SARS epidemic to make sure that they wouldn't be on the hook for nationwide shutdowns and so forth. So they sold some policies with that type of coverage out there. It's probably not going to do you much good. With the force majeure language, and especially in a lease, a lot of times, I can bear me out with this, it'll say, impossibility of performance, you don't have to perform, except you have to pay your rent.
Exactly.
And the landlord, is smart enough to have included that usually. And I know I've looked that one up specifically for a client just the other day. And it's very obvious that the tenant should always be very careful before failing to pay rent. I mean, whether it's permitted under the lease or whether it's some kind of a negotiating strategy is a different thing. But as a legal matter, my advice is always pay your rent. But some of the question then is there some sort of way to cobble together a defense by saying, well, the landlord is in breach, these buildings in the loop are shut down, or they're not allowing more than 3 people in an office suite or something like that. So the tenant isn't getting what he paid for. So it seems to me there's at least an argument there that the landlord is in breach. Again, it's not his fault, so there's nothing he can do about it. So it's probably not going to be all that helpful to a tenant further down the road. But it's certainly something you have to look at your own lease, or if you have another type of contract that might be implicated by what's going on right now, you want to look at the exact language in there. And even if it's not in the contract, then sometimes there's common law remedies for what's called impossibility of performance. But it's a very difficult time, and you have to look and see what is going on and what is available to you as a remedy. So,
sure, and of course, we're not going to ask you to speak in very specific terms. So I appreciate that. I think every situation is different, and I think. Is it safe to say that perhaps maybe you should just have a one-on-one conversation with your landlord and perhaps, try and work just in good faith, work something out? I mean,
well, not to interrupt, the first thing you do is you call your lawyer and you spend a little money that way and make sure, where you're coming from before you have that conversation. Because even if you're approaching it in complete good faith and with no real agenda, you don't know that the landlord isn't having an agenda of his own. So you want to know your strengths and weaknesses before you have that conversation with the landlord. But I would definitely recommend, a good faith conversation. If you can't pay your rent, you need to explain to the landlord why not and how you want to work your way through this. So, Noah, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was going to agree with that too. I mean, it's all going to be a case-by-case basis. You hope that if you're a tenant in good standing and you've been in a building for a while, you've got a good relationship with the landlord, that, again, a case-by-case basis, but you can have that conversation and maybe a creative solution. Hey, work something out now, but on the back end, maybe extend some term with the landlord, but while there's a little rent relief today. We also said timing is going to be everything. We're still, it's surprising to say this, we're still so early in this pandemic that, we've only had this shutdown for a couple of weeks now. So our feel is really just kind of see how it plays out, to approach your landlord today and try to work something out now when we don't know how long this is going to take. And, it just, time is going to be everything. So it's really to have a, creative way to approach the landlord and see if that can work out.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's hard at this point. I think, it's obviously everyone is in the same boat. And I think what everyone just needs to do is hold on to the fact that things at some point are going to return to normal. But for me personally, what I'm curious about is from both of you, and either of you can answer this, is what are some good strategies? Let's just pretend it's 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road that you can put in place to protect yourself in the future, to perhaps, I guess what I'm after is stave off getting into a bad position in the future. Is there any tips or tricks that either of you can share with us?
Well, gosh, if I could have foreseen this, I would have sold some stock and done some different things. It's it would be interesting when the dust settles. We may have some better ideas about what to do if a problem like this comes back, in the same way. The problem is you don't know what's going to be next.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to anticipate the next disaster. So
I personally, I had a birthday 2 weeks ago, and we had dinner plans, and it was just that day being said, oh, you should probably stay home, you know, yada, yada, yada. And I will admit that we went to dinner, but we went to dinner, we got in and we got out, and we went home. And the rest of the weekend, I couldn't even get my head wrapped around when the governor announced that there's a stay-at-home order. And in no way, shape, or form was I really prepared, but I'll admit, I made the panic run. I got a bunch of food that I had to stuff in every nook and cranny of my refrigerator and in my cabinets. And no one predicted this, right? But I think now we're going to learn. I think we're going to learn for the next time, because there's going to be something, right? There's always something. Hopefully it's not for another 10 years, but Noah, you were going to say something?
Well, you know, again, it's just preparation. Again, it's regardless of what business you're in, but just preparation. You know, you don't really have to have this hoarding mentality. I think we've kind of learned that, hopefully, that you don't really need to do that. But, you know, the preparation part of it, like the last week that we were all present in our offices and things like that, we talked to a lot of businesses that knew this was coming down. And so the preparation part of it, they were saying, hey, what I'm focused on this week is getting my staff ready to work remotely, whether it's taking files home with them, whether it's getting laptops ready for everybody, whether it's, you know, loading certain software that we can have these remote conversations. You know, so I think the firms that were able to do that, first and foremost, get out in front of it, were able to kind of operate just business as usual the best they could, where we are today. So I think just having that preparation, we all learn from mistakes and how things, you know, how people did things right and how they get into it. But just really having that preparation and being ready and not only for yourself, but your staff as well.
That is a very good point. And I think a lot of larger organizations, by which I mean, you know, more than just a handful of people, you know, are often encouraged to have a contingency plan for disasters and so forth. And, you know, you hear this stuff and it seems like, oh, yeah, I'll get to that later. And then the people who it's the grasshopper and the ant, you know, the guy who went and did what he should have done a year ago and planned all this out is very happy now that he did.
Yeah.
So good point, Noah.
Yeah. And don't worry, I'm not hoarding all the paper supplies. And supplies.
I was not accusing you, Julie.
But I did buy a large bag of rice at Costco because it's the only size they had left. So, but anyway, all right, gentlemen, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything before we sign off here? Thank you so much for being on. I'm very grateful. We're going to share this with our network. So anything you'd like to finish up with?
You know, I was just going to say, hey, we're, you know, and Don will say the same thing. We're a resource for you. So we really look at this as a long-term approach, a long-term relationship, not only for us here, but businesses going forward. So let us know if you have any questions, whether it's your lease or anything like that. And we just want to take this long-term approach that we're all going to get through this. Let's all work together. And again, just work together and be positive and be patient. And the goal for everybody is when all is said and done, we'll look back on this and say either we were overprepared, underprepared, what have you, but we're all going to learn from this and just kind of take that positive outlook going forward.
Nice.
All right. I guess I would just concur. That's exactly right. I'd be happy to chat with people. And, you know, again, as I said earlier, you have to know where you stand before you try and figure out how to get out of that situation. And that requires sometimes a fresh eye to look at things. So we will get through it, and we'll either laugh or be very sad years from now. But I think it's all going to be fine, and we're going to laugh at the overreaction. But I hope that's true.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on, and have a great day. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks,
Thank
Julie.
you very much.
Thanks, Noah. All right. Take care.
Bye.